escucha América, que
Shit.
Puerto Rico
Ready?
se da.
Oh, we're live
Un
already?
saludo
Like right
para
now? Currently?
Americano.
We are live. Are we
And
sound
Janet's
check
singing
live?
for us.
Janet is singing for us, y'all. So we have On-Site with Blast, without Blast.
Are we ready?
We are live. We
Oh.
are ready.
Oh, pues.
We are ready.
Pues ya
Janet
empezó.
says she's going to sing.
Preciosa te llaman las olas del mar que te bañan. Preciosa será sin bandera, sin luz y sin gloria. Qué bonita bandera,
Ey.
qué bonita bandera,
Ey.
qué bonita bandera, la bandera puertorriqueña.
Hey, y'all. This is Yazmin Way. I am actually filling in for Blast. So it's On-Site with Blast, without Blast. And this is a special episode, which I am excited to be a part of. It is Hispanic Heritage Month, guys.
Yes, it is.
What's soon to be over?
Yes, which
Tomorrow.
soon will be over tomorrow.
Yes.
So it was super important for us to get this in. And I have the pleasure of sitting with Janet Diaz and Rafael Torres.
Gracias. Thank you for the
Thank you.
invitation.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And they are here to give us some insight on Hispanic Heritage Month and some education and just a little bit of, you know how us Puerto Ricans do, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Un arroz con habichuela.
I'm
Sí,
here
un
for
sazón,
it.
un sazón, un sofrito.
I'm here for it. So what does Hispanic Heritage Month mean? Like, what does that, why is it this time period that we celebrate our culture?
Well, I can start by telling everyone that there are different, I would say colonies, and also, South America had different places that became independent from the Spaniards, like Guatemala back in September 15, 1821. They were granted the independence from the Spaniards without a fight, and wars that spread across a lot of Latin American, Central America. Then there was Peru back on July 28th, which was in 1821. Jose San Martin helped to gain independence, and Peru's war was continue a series of military conflict against Spain, starting 1811, and so on and so on. Then we have Los Panameños, lo de Panamá. That one was November 3rd, 1903, and they also got their freedom. Argentina, that was on July 9th, and that was 1816. They led the independence by Manuel Belgrán, Juan José Castillo, and José de San Martín. And then we had Los Dominicanos, the Dominican Republic, and that was February 27th, 1844. And that there was a kind of like a split between French and the Spaniards, and that's when the Santo Domingo became liberated from the Spaniards, but the Haitians stayed as a French colony there. So that is all combined into 1 month, and that's why we celebrate it. And I think Rafi can touch into additional things like Puerto Rico is the world's oldest colony. So if you wanted to add to that.
I actually wanted to start from the Civil Rights Movement, because that's where it actually begins. We have the period where, it's Dr. Martin Luther King, it's the Civil Rights Movement, to get people to be, appreciated and recognized as U.S. citizens, as Americans. So it was Lyndon Johnson who actually then decides to take a week and dedicate it to the Hispanic community during 1968, which was, during the Civil Rights Movement. And then Ronald Reagan, in the early 80s, he's the one that established it as a whole month to then encompass Mexico's Day of Liberation, Independence. El Grito de Lares for Puerto Rico, even though Puerto Rico did not officially receive its independence. There's other reasons to why, and why Puerto Rico is the world's oldest colony. and we can talk about that if you really want to get
I really
into
do.
that.
I want to get into it. I think people don't realize
Yeah.
there's so many people that have never been there. There's so many people that don't know what makes up a Puerto Rican. There's so many people that don't know our culture. I think this is a great opportunity to highlight some of those things.
Especially now that we have experienced these hurricanes that have been so ferocious. Puerto Rico has been beaten by so many, I hate to say it, politicians. They have completely disregarded that we are a colony. And I always say, we didn't ask you to come and fight Spain. So why are you treating us like second-class citizens? And not only are we taxed so highly, and we have problems trying to fight about the Jones Act to, give us that.
The Jones Act, which is a sea law for those of you that don't know about the Jones Act.
Pero nosotros, Puertorriqueños,
Yes.
I'm a very proud Puerto Rican, even though I was born in New York. But I'm a proud Puerto Rican because I got myself tested, and I'm more Taína Indian, which was surprising. I do have a pretty big percentage of Taína Indian. Maybe that's why I'm very close to Ralphie. And, of course, Spaniard. And I think probably, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember all the numbers, but I think it's 3% African and 1%, this is going to make you laugh.
Chinese?
No,
Jewish,
not
right?
probably, but not.
Because I'm pretty sure I have Chinese. Like 5 tests for myself. I'd be surprised.
It's actually in Puerto Rico when there was the war, we had Dutch. So I got a little Dutch in me. I was like, where did that come from?
Well,
But
true.
we're mixed,
Yeah, no, we are, yeah.
I actually want to add to what Janet said about, Puerto Rico was the Spanish colony for 400 plus years. The Spaniards were about to liberate Puerto Rico. Se llama la Carta de la Autonomía, the letter of autonomy. Autonomy was that Puerto Rico was going to be free. The United States was in the role of expanding throughout Central America, throughout the Caribbean. It was part of the expansion of the Monroe Doctrine. And they caught wind. The United States caught wind that Puerto Rico and Cuba were going to be free. And then the invasion came in 1898 through the southern part of Puerto Rico. When the United States lands their troops in Puerto Rico, they thought that the United States was going to save them from all of the oppression that they had gone through for 450 years. And, there was improvements. Roads got constructed, the schools, public school system. But, I mean, we're still a colony. We were a colony during the Spanish rule, but we're still a colony today. So we're just a territory. The United States gets to do and say whatever they want with Puerto Rico. In 1917, they gave us U.S. citizenship, or at least my grandparents, or many of our grandparents. Yes. But there was rhymes and reasons for that, and it wasn't for Puerto Ricans. It wasn't for Puerto Rico. It was actually for Puerto Ricans to help the United States in World War I, World War II. So there was a military reason for that, and it was to become part of conquering other nations, other countries, and that's where we are today still.
And I recall, and I'm not sure, Rafa, you might have to touch on this one. They had the military base there in Puerto Rico as well.
There's still a military base there, correct?
We're still.
And they also planted the biggest satellite in the world in Arecibo.
Yep.
Where they had Mission Impossible, and Jodie Foster made that movie there. So Puerto Rico is very well known, and a lot of people do come from other countries to visit our island, our beautiful island, Preciosa.
Yeah, that it is.
But we really need to understand that we need either our independence or we need to be our state. because too many Latinos in Puerto Rico are suffering. And we don't have just Latinos. We have Chinese people, Japanese people. We have 3,000 Jewish people. There's a mixture of different residents, cultures
Some
that
of the
live
best
there.
Chinese food I've ever had. And I promise you, some of the best Chinese food I've ever
In
had
Puerto Rico.
was in Puerto Rico. It was. It was mind boggling. But it was some of the best
I
food.
must certainly
And they spoke fluent Spanish. It was great.
con acento y todo mejor que nosotros.
She spoke better Spanish than me. Yep.
Well, one thing too that we can look at is in the Latino Heritage Zone, there's many contributors from all over Latin America and the Caribbean. I'll touch my favorite person, Tito Puente. You know, he played Los Timbales, and he was famous. And still today, I listen to it. I don't know if you wanted to touch on some other ones, Ralphie.
Well, but the most common ones are like Tito Puente. We have Roberto Clemente. We're in baseball season, right?
Right.
Go Phillies, by the way.
Go Yankees.
Yankees? What's that? Yeah. But, you know, the ones that people know, I know you came out with a list of significant Hispanics. I always like to research on others that are not as common. You know, the most recent one, and I've been following her story, is Yahaira Sierra Sastre. She's a nanotechnologist who's working with NASA to become an astronaut.
Yes.
So,
Ooh, you see that?
yeah.
Yes.
You
a
see.
nano,
Yes.
a nanotechnologist. So, I mean, and she's from Puerto Rico. Then she'll be the first female Puerto Rican astronaut. We know that Joseph Acawa was the first Puerto Rican astronaut, the first one to take the flag up there. But there's many firsts, and there's many trendsetters and leaders that are out there. Sonia Sotomayor being
Yes, that's a
on
big
the
one.
U.S. Supreme Court. Our contributions as Hispanic community members, you know, when we say Hispanic, we're talking about all the Spanish-speaking countries, you know, the ones in the Caribbean, Central, South America. You know, our contributions to this country, to the United States of America, is huge. I just found out today, doing some research, because I like to be prepared. In 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, and over 500,000 Mexican Americans joined the war effort. Mexican Americans.
I think I knew that.
They
I've heard
serve.
that fact before, yes.
They served to defend this country from the Japanese assault. One of our greatest military generals, and I'm a veteran myself, General MacArthur, said that he called them the greatest fighting combat team ever deployed in battle. These over 500,000 Mexican Americans that served in the 158th Regiment combat team. They got a 13 Medal of Honor, but to have an American general, one of our most famous, one of the famous generals of all time for military service, to say the greatest fighting combat team. What were they doing? They were defending this country
They
here.
were defending the United States.
They were defending the United States of America. And even today, do we get the respect that we deserve as contributors to this nation? And that's the part that we need to keep talking. So thank you for this platform to be able to
Always.
Yes.
stories like that.
And I agree with him. And I know I didn't want to touch too much about the politics, but the fact is, since this particular cycle of election, it has really opened up the minds of many Latinos, and they're saying, it seems like all these political parties, they come to us and they want us to vote for them, but as soon as the Latinos go back whoever it is that they're backing, they literally forget who we are. They literally forget what we need. They forget the fact that Puerto Rico's hurting. They forget the fact that Cuba, Santo Domingo, look at the crisis in the border where people from Venezuela is coming, and all these immigrants and how they're treated. If they came from a different country, they're obviously would, the red carpet comes out. So we really, as Latinos, we really need to unite because we have done and we continue doing a lot of work. When it comes to the farms, let's look at the mushroom farms here in Pennsylvania. We have a lot of not only migrants, but we also have those that are citizens that are very humble people. The majority are like Mexicans or from Guatemala. So, yeah, from South America. They're hardworking. They don't get paid what they really should get paid. They don't have insurance, healthcare insurance that they need in order for them. They can't even drive, and we already have something in Harrisburg, I think probably about 3 or 4 years ago, where legislation was put in there so they can get a driver's license. How many of them I've seen them, around the Amish areas walking to work? And could you imagine having to walk to work at whether it's a farm or some chicken place, and they're freezing? They have no access, That hurts me as a Latina, seeing my Latinos, I don't care where they come from, in those predicaments. That hurts me because nosotros Latinos tenemos cariño y amor. We're raised with love and affection and respecting and, treating people as human beings and what they are.
Yeah.
I'm glad, we're talking about agriculture. A lot of times people ask me, where'd you come from? And I'm like, well, I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Born and raised. No, where did you really come from? I'm like, well, I'm a man without a country, is how I answer it. Because I go to my parents' birthplace, which is Puerto Rico, right in the southern part of the island. Well, I have an accent there, but I also have an accent here. And I look funky down there, but I also look weird here. So which one is it, And so it's pretty tough. It's tough for many of us to, just to be able to adapt, not assimilate. Assimilate means you give up all the sense of your being, who you are, your cultures, your food, what makes you special. It's hard enough to adapt, and our contributions here. Look at you, you're the city council woman, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, as being a
How many
Latina
terms?
woman, you're not just Janet Diaz, you're also a councilwoman. Like, how does it feel to make those strides as a Latina? Because you're not just making those strides for Latinos. You're a Latina, which means you have the little girls looking up and saying, oh, I always knew Dad can do this, because growing up in a Hispanic home, it's always
machista.
Yeah, you follow the man's lead. Well, you follow the man's lead, and that's what it was. You follow the man's lead, and to see the women today evolve is always amazing and beautiful. So, how did it feel to be that? Because that's a milestone.
In retrospect, I didn't know where this was going to go. But seeing, especially my Senate race, and seeing these little girls record themselves, their mom recording them, I want to be like Janet. And then, I'm over here crying because I'm like, if I touch a child's heart, to me, that's more important than anything. But I'm doing it for them because they're coming up. They see me, they can say, you know what, I'm Latina. I'm poor, my mom works hard, but I can be like Janet. I can study and I can work hard and be just like Janet. And that means more to me than anything. And I work hard to make sure that my community sees that any Latina, any Latino, as long as they're doing it for the right thing, because I do it for the right thing. I work, people call me, I'm there, But watching other Latinas, all the way from Erie, being the first Latina in city council, that meant a lot to me.
I mean, to know that you were a part of opening up those doors, that's history. That's Latina orgullo. That is pride. That's history. To be that, to see that, to see, as a child growing up in a Hispanic household and that environment, to see the women evolve over the years is amazing.
Well, just like yourself.
I was I'm the only girl, and I have 3 older brothers, but I was the star in my house. So my dad, like, always, yeah, you're going to be everything. He always, put that in us. But in reality, that wasn't realistic. And not when I was younger. I didn't see the Latina women, they were actresses. That's what they did. They were in novelas. They were actresses. That's what I remembered. So to see the evolution and the strive that Latina women have made now, that my daughter can see it, that's pride. That's something to really look forward to just see everything moving forward. Well, that's something to be proud of.
I think the one that really struck me the most, that I really admire, is Sotomayor. And then her books that she wrote about, and it's about Latinas, and the history of all the Latinos and what they have brought it, whether it's Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, Mark Anthony, these are actors and singers, but they went through a lot to get there. In fact, when Mark Anthony started, I saw him at Orchard Beach.
Yep, my favorite spot. I was just there about
I love Mark
3
Anthony.
or 4 weeks.
Might I add, I love Mark Anthony.
And he was like, at that time, he was like nothing. He was just like a regular, pop star in the city. He was, and to see him now,
an icon,
and he does it with so much passion for Puerto Rico. When Maria hit, how they worked together, and I think of there was another one that wrote the librarian. Perla, I forget her name.
Pura Belpre.
I mean, when you think of her going to be the first librarian in New York City, and she writes, there was no books for Latino kids that could read Spanish, but she would translate them into Spanish for the kids. That's a lot, and that's history. So when you think about Latinas, I think of those people that brought history, that has changed authors and teachers. We want more Latina teachers. We want more Latino teachers.
I think more Latino history needs to be taught also.
I think so,
I don't hear enough about it. I for the first time, like a month ago, I went to go visit the Taino History Museum, which is phenomenal. If anyone is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, make sure you hit Rafael Torres up.
I've been there.
It's phenomenal. I learned so much, and I've always prided myself in being educated and knowing history. And you taught us so much, and that has been like your journey, like your gift, your orgullo comes from educating other people. He was so.
Oh, I know.
But they're very capturing. Like, that is what you have made one of your missions to be, is to literally educate people about our history, because we don't know it enough.
It's not taught in school about Puerto Rico.
It's a matter of choice. So we can either choose to remain silent and just follow the whatever's going on at the time, or you just take on that responsibility because you want to make sure that those stories aren't forgotten, that they're shared in whatever platform that you have, and being Hispanic is a huge responsibility. We have people looking at us. We have people looking at us, from our own families, our own Hispanic communities, but then everybody else, how are they acting? How are they walking and talking? What is it that they're actually doing? And it's a choice, and I chose to make sure that, our native stories continue, just like Cacique Watuiri or the Cruz family. So, yes, she's both spoke about the Taino Cultural Center here in Lancaster. It's on Beaver Street, of all blocks. It's Lancaster's best kept secret.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I've told everyone, about the museum since I found out about it. I've posted it on my social media. I have told friends. I think it's amazing because I've always felt like our culture is not represented enough when it comes to history. I wouldn't know as a child growing up that there were slaves on Puerto Rico, or that the Caribbean island was enslaved. I wouldn't have known that if it wouldn't have been for my parents educating me in the house. Those were stories that I heard from my mom, my dad, my grandmother. But I didn't hear that in school. I didn't have that during history class.
Nope, we never
I
learned
didn't.
that.
All we were told was here and nothing about the islands, the Caribbean islands, everything that was
About the
suffered.
Civil War.
None of that. None of that was there. I learned all of that literally by my ancestors, my parents, my grandmother, just our family. They don't teach that.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to work with our school district. We need to work with legislators that we can bring books from Puerto Rico. We need to teach our kids not only, about Santo Domingo, Cuba, all these places brought something, whether it's aguacate, piña, azúcar. Puerto Rico was one of the biggest agriculture in sugar, and because of the wonderful, I would say.
That's where Domino's Sugar got their start at, which
Yeah.
it was in Puerto Rico.
My uncle, he was a capataz, which is like a manager, and I lived there for 3 years in Puerto Rico to learn Spanish, and also I learned a lot about agriculture. But he was the manager of a sugarcane field, and I learned a lot. I mean, he was like teaching me, how the soil is, and how much sun it penetrates, and when it gets time to get it, what is the harvest of it, and and that's what really taught me what a Puerto Rican is. Because you grow up in the States and you really don't get the chance, just like kids that they come from the city and they go to the Amish and they see the difference. Well, to me it was a culture shock when I moved there, to be able to live on a farm. We still have the issue with the water being shut off and the light and the hurricanes. And
Still?
I can't listen. I can't. Puerto Rico, the water and the electricity goes out at least once a day. It's nothing to be alarmed about. That's normal over there.
Yeah, but not for 3 months. I mean, this is where we really need to fight. We really need to help the Latinos in Puerto Rico.
I'm with you.
Because we are being slighted. We're enough with slavery. To me, I feel like we're enslaving Puerto Ricans, and that's my people, that's my family, and enough is enough. We have fought wars, we have doctors, we have lawyers. In my family, we have generations of 5 police officers, like generations 5 years. Or 5 generations of police officers. We have nurses. We have, that I know of, doctors I don't know because my family is huge. We have firemen, and my aunt was a teacher. She taught me Spanish,
Credentials don't transfer here.
Exactly. The credentials don't transfer here. And this is another thing. This is why we should be a state.
That was a really big issue. I have family in Puerto Rico. Most of my father's family is predominantly there, and they are all highly educated. Yep. They are all very successful. But when they try to come to the mainland, which is what they call it, the mainland, which I thought was funny. They call us the mainland. It's different. Yeah. And they end up working minimum wage somewhere until they can't take it and go back to their profession. Because you can't tell me that I went to college for 8 years to become something and now I'm nothing. Like, I can't do anything.
That's because
you don't want to recognize my education that I paid for and I sacrificed to get through.
Well, they don't want to recognize it. They want to keep making more money off of you.
That's right.
Then you have to go back to school.
The one thing that I tell legislators and folks in the political theater is that it's the same U.S. Department of Education.
Exactly.
The same one here across the mainland, 50 states, is the same one in Puerto Rico. Why do we continue to just, oppress people to the point that you go from being a professional in one area and you got to be dropped down to $7.25 an hour? Well, now
there
it's
was,
$15 an hour.
now that he's touching on that, when Maria struck, there was a lot of people that moved here, and across the state and across the nation. Let's put it that way. So there was a young woman that the city, of course, found a hotel room for her and her family. She was a nurse. She's a nurse, and where was she working? LGH, cleaning toilets. Nothing wrong with that. I clean toilets sometimes too. But what I'm saying is, you have a nursing degree. Why not give her the certification immediately? Let her pay a couple $100s for her to practice here. No. So you know what she did? She packed up and she went back to Puerto Rico. And a lot of them went back to Puerto Rico because to me it's discrimination. Not only money, but I call it discrimination as well.
It's tough. Yeah, Maria was tough.
And now we
Maria
have
was tough.
the latest one.
I know.
That's
Fiona.
Fiona. We're starting to get calls where I'm living at now. It's Lebanon County that people are looking to move here. But now we have the housing crisis. We have,
The
not
cost of
enough affordable housing, not enough housing, period.
Yeah,
housing,
there just
period.
isn't enough houses. Yeah, there just isn't enough. There is Lancaster itself is high demand.
It's not only high demand, the taxes
But
is
That
going
is
up
true
the
too.
roof.
But still, even with the taxes that high, people still want to live here.
Keep
No one
raising the
leaves.
taxes down.
No one leaves.
No, what they can do is they can get 10 families, buy a big huge condominium, like the one on 1 Prince Street, and then they could all live there.
Why are you winking out?
I oppose that one. That's why. Because I said, instead of putting condos there, which hasn't sold, honey, it hasn't sold, let's put affordable housing there. People work at the hospital. They can walk home. No problem with the environment. They don't have to buy cars. They don't have to worry about spending money with having insurance. They can walk to the hospital. They can walk around the restaurants, and then they can go home. Oh no, that wasn't feasible for people like us, hardworking people, people that need affordable housing.
Yeah, we need to continue to find affordable housing because there are, and not for nothing, but there's always going to be people that want to live here. Lancaster's actually really quite nice area to live in.
It is. I've been here
It's a nice
practically all
area.
my life.
I left and came back, and I still stand on what I said. It's a nice place to raise your children.
Yeah.
It's safe. It's nice. Everything is right here.
And then, you have every year we have, festivals. And that's like tomorrow we're having the last festival.
Yes.
And we're bringing another icon.
Yes. Brenda K-Star is coming
Yeah.
tomorrow. So that is going to be exciting. And it's going to be a good day, though. There's going to be
74.
Yes, there's going to be food trucks. There's going to be entertainment. There's going to be dancers out there.
Yes,
it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. I'm
We
excited.
need to end it with a bang,
Yeah.
But we really need to continue, the conversation on educating our children and educating them about the history.
What's the most important piece of history that you want to get across to someone, Latino, somebody's child, somebody's watching this right now, and there is one opportunity that you have to embed something into their subconscious about who they are, what runs through their body, about the fact that they are Latino, and they should be proud of that because they're not enough. We are not proud enough. I don't feel like we are. Not from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we used to have it was different. The spirit, the culture was
a lot different.
different.
We had
Now as
parades.
an
We
adult,
even had
we did a lot of bunch
and
of
we're bringing
stuff.
it back.
I can't wait.
Next year, we're
I
bringing it
can't
back.
wait. I think it's important to keep the culture. That was one of the scariest things for me with all of the hurricanes and people leaving. It was being brought up by people, and the culture was going to be stripped out of it. But if you had the opportunity to speak to some child right now, what's the most important piece that you feel like you need to get across to them?
For me, I want them to understand that they can always contribute, that they can always be part of the process. You either choose to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Make sure that you take the time out to, study other people, ask questions.
How do they study? See, because most people they don't even know where to start. Like you said, how some people always write a list, and this is Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
There's these people that you just know automatically. These are the 5-6 people that we talk about every year. How do people find those resources? I mean, besides the ones that live in Lancaster and can go to the Taino Museum, how can they find those resources? Where do you research? Where does it start?
Well, it always starts within yourself, period. Because when I was growing up, I knew that there was something funky going on at home. I am light-skinned. I'm very white. Trust me, the sun doesn't do much for my skin. But then my siblings have different features. They're more native looking than I was. No, for real. I mean, and we have the same set of parents. And I remember growing up in Lancaster, late 60s, early 70s, and calling my brother in Espanol negrito or negro, which means black. We have African in us, but why did he have different features other than from my own? So I started asking questions just within my own self and my own nucleus. And back then, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have smart/dummy phones. I call them smart/dummy phones because you can choose, what kind of information you get out of the smartphone. Now we have DNA where you can send out get tested. That's how I found out that for real. I already knew way back then that we had Native American ancestry.
Yes.
In my family, it's 24%, or at least within myself.
That's high.
24. I'm up there. But I also knew, about the Spanish and the Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
For me, again, it's the self, because then you start asking questions as far as, customs and traditions, music that you listen to, foods that you eat, because that's what makes who you are.
Mm-hmm.
When I just looking for information, I found out that mondongo, mofongo, and sancocho, that's African.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Puerto Rican.
Most people don't know that.
Mondongo, mofongo, y sancocho es africano.
También, plátano frito.
Most people don't know that.
And we have a problem. You mentioned azúcar earlier. That's Arabic, from the word sucar. Pantalon.
Or the racism within our own community because they don't know those facts.
They don't.
And that's really what it comes down to. People don't realize that there is so much racism within our own Latino communities because they don't know things like that, because they have a lack of education. They don't know what makes them. They don't know how they're designed.
So here, and I don't mean to interrupt, okay, talk about the racism amongst, us Hispanic and Latinos. So you have a Puerto Rican from the island who's speaking quote-unquote Espanol to a Mexican who's, born and raised in Mexico, doesn't have no English influence or whatever. They're both looking at each other weirded out because the Mexican speaking Spanish, but he's also using words within the quote-unquote Spanish that are actually native words. And we are doing the same thing in Puerto Rico. 27% of around 27% of the Spanish that we speak in Puerto Rico is actually Arahuaco words, which is Taino. So So then you can start discriminating somebody because he's speaking weird, right?
Well, I think when you touched about the Mexicans, they had the Aztecas.
Pues los aztecas,
You
los
know,
peruanos con
Azteca.
la Inca,
El
los
Inca.
centroamericanos with the Mayans.
There's a lot of Indian,
Yeah,
and that's where the history needs to be taught, because each and every one has a different Indian background, you know? It was just that when the Spaniards came, they raped, they pillared, and they changed everything, and then they brought Africans from Africa, which also got in the mix, you know, and it just kept going into South America, you know, and that's why we have so much different diversity in color. Like, I'm darker, my brother's lighter than him.
Más dicho que yo.
My brother would literally have to tell people in school that, I swear, those are my sisters.
My kids.
You know?
My kids are like that.
And no matter how many times we kept saying, yeah, he's my brother. And yes, we all look different. and that's because they didn't see the other side. I had another there's a total of 4 sisters and 2 brothers. The other one's really dark, you know? So we're what I call a color of rainbow in the sense of shades. You know, we're different shades. And, you know, it's interesting.
So you have to find out who you yourself as the individual is. It's okay to explore other people. It's okay to learn, you know, the other personalities or the famous people. But learn about yourself. Get to know who you are.
Awesome.
And in reference to me, I think go out there and explore who you are and what your culture is, and learn about it and be proud. I am very proud.
Where do you think that comes from? Where do you think, you know, not for nothing, but again, growing up in a very old school traditional Hispanic household, orgullo was important. That was like embedded into us. Like, I remember my grandmother putting me on the sink in the bathroom, having me look in the mirror while she like brushed my forehead and my hair, and telling me like you, there's no other. Como tú, no hay ninguna. And she would make you say that to yourself. And she was, looking back, she was really just building up my self-esteem. And it was important for her to know that I was important, that I was this, that I was that. That's all orgullo. Where do you think that comes from? Because not for nothing, but Latinos have a lot of pride.
Well, one thing I can say, that I was very introvert coming from New York here as a child, and my unfortunate experience was discrimination off the bat.
Yeah.
But the interesting part, they kept calling me wetback, and I never really knew what it was because my mom was hiding what I was going through, and she would just say, oh, they're just kidding, it's just your back is wet, until I hit high school and I started learning things, and I'm like, oh, okay.
That's what they meant.
So I must have looked Mexican
To them.
Well, we're all Mexican.
We're all mixed. We're all mixed, but
No,
I'm just saying.
that's how they classify us.
They call we're all Mexican because we. One thing I want to end with is, if you're out there and you're a child, please learn Spanish. Learn Spanish because it's the #1 spoken language all around the world.
It's so so beneficial. I didn't realize the importance of it. It was my first language. I have memories. I knew English by my older brothers because they were older than me, and so they were in school and they learned it before me. But they taught me all the cuss words, right? Because then I couldn't get in trouble because I didn't know English. So I would just run around saying the cuss words. Had no idea what I was saying, but everyone would always, like, my brothers would laugh. So I thought it was funny until I started learning. And I remember asking my mom, like, do you realize how challenging it was to be in an inner city school, not knowing English, not being in an ESL program, because my mother felt like that would label me back then. She didn't want any labels on her kids.
That happened
my
to
kids,
us.
yeah. So, and she thought that was like a protective measure as a parent. And the first thing that she said to me is, none of that mattered. The most important thing was that you learned Spanish, because if it was your first language, then the chances of you forgetting it as you get older, since we are here,
Yeah.
are going to be a lot less. And it's important for your kids to know it. And I now having children, I'm grateful that they understand it. I'm grateful that they know it. And I tell them, like, no, keep practicing. I want you to teach your children one day. I feel like it'll die.
It makes us smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know 2 languages.
Yeah.
My husband knows 6. And
amazing.
And I wish I'm learning Hebrew, and I've always got interested in Italian, and I pick it up every so often because Sicilian is so close to Spanish.
Sicilian.
So, yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you guys. You guys are great. Is there anything you want to leave? Hispanic Heritage event is tomorrow in Lancaster City. If anyone is out there, make sure you come. There's going to be food trucks. There's going to be Ralphie will be out there.
I'll be out there for
Yes.
I'll be there.
Janet will be there.
During the morning.
I will be there. You will find me somewhere at someone's table with some great information for you. But is there anything that you want to leave on what Hispanic Heritage means to you?
I just keep celebrating our accomplishments as a community, as a culture. Do positive things, and just keep plugging away and show others, who we really are, and our essence, and I'll keep doing it. So I just need more people to join.
We need to be more like Ralphie. We need more of Ralphie. I appreciate Ralphie so much. He doesn't even know. But I can say that invite someone to your house. Invite someone to the Spanish restaurant. Talk to them. Tell them what Latino means to you so they can learn. A lot of time people feel like they're being discriminated. Sometimes it's not discrimination. It's because of ignorance and they don't know. But if you teach them, that's going to show how strong the Latino is and how much we embrace each other. And remember, love each other. No matter where you come from, what color you look like, what language you speak, love each other, because I really do believe in love, and I do believe that there is a big entity that does unite us. And the Latinos in general, we're always united.
You see, as soon as they talk about Latinos, we all start smiling. And it's that pride. It's that orgullo. Well, guys, we did it. It is on-site with blast, without blast. And we got a chance to talk about Hispanic heritage. I hope someone learned something. I hope someone wants to research something. I hope you want to learn a language. Go try some Spanish food from anywhere. We have so much amazing food, from tacos to baked goods to rice and beans. But take advantage of the beautiful month that we have left, and make sure you come on down and try some food. All right, guys. See ya.
Bye.
You guys are so awesome.
We try.